Welcome to my journey through the Bible. This will be applications that we can apply to our life and a little more in depth about the chapter. We're in Genesis 47, 1 through 31. And it says that the faithfulness of Joseph affected his entire family. Now, when Joseph was in the pit, or in prison, I'm sure he wondered how things would work out and what was going to become of him and his life. But Joseph didn't despair. He obeyed God and he did what was right. Now, we can see the exciting results of Joseph's life and how things turned out for him. We see the good and the bad and the story at the end. And in our life, we're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be good things that happen to us. There's going to be bad things that happen to us. The most important thing is to remain faithful and obedient to God through all of it. Now, others around us may not always see the effects of our faithfulness, but God will see it, and God will honor and reward you for your faithfulness. You might not always have what you want, but God will make sure that you have what you need. Now, I want you to see how they split up like a fifth of the land, and people keeping a fourth of the land. If we're looking at this as 100%, that would mean 50% of what they had went to Pharaoh. This is a lot like when we pay taxes and the government's gonna get their share, their part of money that you make. And then you have this other 40% to live on. And I don't know, with our economy and the way things are going, these numbers may be off a little more. Maybe you're giving your government 60 or 70% with all the inflations and things that go on. But in general, I just wanted to point out how in this chapter that they're looking at giving 50% of it to Pharaoh, and then they would have this 40%. Well, what happened to the other 10%? The other 10% is the tithe that they would give to the priest. And in today's world, that's 10% is what we tithe that we give to our church or to God or for the work of God. Now, I just wanted to touch base on that. In the next chapter or the next book, we will actually get more in depth to this and the reasoning behind it and so forth. I just wanted to make sure that you understood everything was accounted for. Now, Israel became slaves to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians. This is how they got in that predicament, because there was no food. And when you don't have food, it doesn't really matter how much money you have or how much land you have or how many things you possess. You need the food to be able to eat, to sustain yourself, and to live. And for them, they gave everything that they possibly had, and all they had left was to give their own selves into slavery. And this, we still have a few more chapters in this book, but this is how Egypt became slaves. And when we read the Bible in order, we get a full picture of how things were and how things were set up and how they came to be. And it tends to make the Bible easier to understand and easier to see some of the mistakes and the actions of different people that were made, that we could take some very valuable lessons from that. And this is why it is so important for us to read our Bibles, because even if you go to church, you go to Sunday school, you're there for 30 minutes to an hour, and it's really hard to paint the full picture of the story of the book and everything that is being applied. You miss so much, and your preachers and your Sunday school teachers are trying to pull out the important parts and trying to explain and tell you about this. And many times those sermons and those Sunday school lessons don't always go in chronological order. Sometimes they bounce around because they've got a new message, or they have something that would apply to that holiday coming up, and they want you to understand the meaning to that holiday and why that holiday is coming about. And while that's all good and fine, it's hard to again get that full picture. So this is why it's so important for us to read your Bible, pick it up and read it. Even if you don't start in the very beginning from Genesis, pick it up in one chapter and start from the beginning of that book and go to the end of that book before you jump somewhere else. This will give you a better understanding of what is happening and what is going on. Now, Joseph promised his father that he would take his bones back with him when he passed away. He would take him and bury him with his father. He would not leave him in the land of Egypt. And in today's world, we give somebody our word. It's just words. There's not always meaning behind them, or there's not always that action for us to actually do what we're supposed to do. And that's really sad. We, as Christians, as God's children, we need to be set apart, and we need to stay true to our word. If we tell somebody we're going to do something, then do it. Be faithful to keep your word, to trust in God, and to live by that truth. Be truthful and live by that truth. And let your word be as binding as a written contract. May God be with you in everything and in every way.